What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today I am going to go over my list and tournament run from the Charlotte Regional Championships, which was the largest Pokemon TCG regional championships ever, with over 2,100 Masters Division players, and I was able to finish with a record of 10 wins, 4 losses, 1 tie, which was good for 53rd place, which is top 64. The deck I chose to play was Gardevoir EX. And this list was actually just the exact same 60 that Rowan Stavinov played at Portland, and he also got the same placement, top 64, finishing 50th place. Shouts out to Rowan and also Kieran Farah, who Kieran played 59 cards of this to third place at LAIC. I spoke to them a lot about the deck and card choices, and ultimately just landed on the same thing that Rowan did. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the deck list and also each of my matchups. Some of the rounds and matchups might be a little less detailed than others, but I just wanted to provide you all with this resource in case you were wondering why I played Gardevoir, or maybe how I played Gardevoir in some of the matchups, or you're just interested in hearing about my tournament journey. Before we get into it, though, remember, if you'd like to support my channel, you can find affiliate links and coupon codes and all of that kind of good stuff down in the description below. If you're looking to enhance your game, especially your understanding of the fundamentals of the Pokemon TCG, start debuting some events and working towards your World's Invite, I offer several different kinds of coaching through Medify. You can find that link down below as well. And I also do have a masterclass coming soon, which will be kind of pre-recorded and really curated content for improving your game. So with that all out of the way, let's talk about Gardevoir EX. So Gardevoir EX is my favorite deck right now. This was only the second regionals I played in this season due to a myriad of different things. But second regionals of the season, also my second day two of the season, which was really nice. My last event, I played Turbo Lost Zone Box, also a very complicated deck in its own right in different ways. For this event, I felt like Gardevoir EX was the best deck in format, and I still feel like Gardevoir EX is the best deck in format. Even if just slightly, it has favored matchups against just about everything except for Miraidon and Chien Pal, and arguably maybe like Entei V Iron Valiant, and then maybe Goldango as well. But as I keep mentioning lists, the decks get more fringe and more fringe. So yeah, I thought Gardevoir EX was the best deck in the format. It has a favored matchup to Tina, into Charizard, into Roaring Moon, into Mew, and these are some of the best and most popular decks. So I thought I would have at least a really, really good day one, and I was correct in that. Day two, when players are all playing really, really well and there's a lot on the line, unfortunately, things end up coming down to luck sometimes, and things also end up coming down to a 50-minute game and one misplay or one bad draw or one miscalculation can just cost you the entire match at that point. So I didn't just straight up net deck this list. I actually worked on Gardevoir EX and many variations of the list for a couple of weeks leading up to Charlotte. Um, I was actually really underconfident. Maybe not underconfident, but I was feeling underprepared going into Charlotte just because we had some family emergencies come up, like right in the midst of when I wanted to start preparing for the event. So I actually felt really, really like this might just be an event that I end up bombing. Like I feel like I've been really, really consistent with events, even though I don't get to go to a lot. And I thought this might just be one of those tournaments that I go to and go like 3-3 drop or something. But fortunately, it wasn't like that. Gardevoir is a really tough deck to play, so definitely make sure you know what you're doing with it if you want to do well. But even if you just like the deck and wins aren't your most important factor, then go for it, if you enjoy the deck. So, like I said, I ended up landing on the same 60 as Rowan did, same 59 as Kieran did, but there was a lot of testing. There was with Jirachi and without Jirachi. There was with research, there was Avery, there was no Pal Pad. I tried one counter catcher. I tried three stadiums. I tried 0 VIP, 3 VIP, 4 VIP, 4 VIP with Mew, 4 VIP without Mew, and ultimately, the VIPs help you in matchups where you need to stabilize pretty much turn one. And those can be Miraidon, those can be Entei Iron Valiant, and it can also be Roaring Moon. Now, specifically Roaring Moon with catchers. Roaring Moon without catchers is like a free matchup, and I now, after seeing this new technology of Roaring Moon with Pokemon catchers, feel like that's probably just the way to play the deck. I played against two of them this weekend, and I played against one Roaring Moon without catchers, and overall went 1-1-1 against Moon. The win was against the one without catchers, and the tie and loss were against Roaring Moons with catchers. It's really scary when they can just start KOing, your Raltses, your Refinements, your Guard EX, your Lumineon if you have to play it down on turns when you wouldn't normally expect Roaring Moon to be able to do that. Overall, I was extremely happy that I cut the Avery for the Jirachi. Avery could have helped me in a couple of matchups. It could have helped versus Chi and Pal. I did win that. It could help versus Mew. I did win that. And it could also help versus the mirror match, which I faced 0 of out of 15 rounds. I guess it could also help versus Goldengo. I remember facing Goldengo in round 2 and thinking, they have a board of like Gimme Ghoul in the active, uh, 3 Gimme Ghoul on the bench, Palkia V-Star, Radiant Greninja, and thinking an Avery could really hurt them here because they don't want to get rid of the Ninja or the Palkia because they're looking for the Cross Switch or Cologne play, but they also don't want to get rid of 2 Gimme Ghouls, so I would force them into some really hard decisions here if I had an Avery, but overall, none of the rounds that I lost had anything to do with not having Avery. Um, I don't think, yeah, and I only tied one round, and Avery had nothing to do with that either. So, and I played against one, two, three, four Lost Zone decks over the weekend. No, five, because so I should also note that on the PokeStats live matchup record that I have here on the screen, round 12 is unfortunately missing, and that was against Turbo Lost Zone box with Hands and Roaring Moon and Kyogre. So maybe it wasn't really Turbo, but it was a very boxy Lost Zone box, and I did win against that. So I played against 5 Lost Zone box decks, and then I also played against NTV Iron Valiant. So like the Jirachi was insanely valuable over the weekend, so I was really happy I played that. As for not playing any Battle VIP passes, the like I was starting to say, the Battle VIP passes are really good against a deck like Roaring Moon, where especially with the catchers, where you need to stabilize your board early. But other than that, the VIPs take up space that you can have like cards that are good the rest of the game, like 4 Ultra Ball. Having 4 Ultra Ball plus Lumineon plus Research is really great. I wouldn't play the Lumineon Research 4th Ultra Ball in a VIP list because you just don't have the room. Maybe you would still play Research, but not the 4th Ultra Ball and the Lumineon, because then the Lumineon, like, you have room on your bench with this deck because you're not VIPing turn one, and I don't think I would have, like, I wouldn't have even made it into day two without Lumineon in this deck. There were so many like games where it's turn one Ralts Pass, turn two Mirage Step, turn three Ultra Ball for Lumineon for Research, and then you get going. So yeah, overall this list is pretty much perfect. I might just play the same exact list again in Knoxville in a couple of weeks. So briefly going over some of the cards. I won't spend too much time because I do think most of the people watching this will probably know what the cards do. But I play 4 Ralts Teleportation Burst because it switches out. So if you come up against a Snorlax stall, they can never trap one of your Ralts. I really wish I would hit more Snorlax stall. I hit 0. It's such a good matchup for me with the strategy that I have prepared, plus Professor Tauros, plus Palpad. If you go like Mirage Step for 3 Curlia, then double Ralts, and you have a full board, they can't Echo Horn anything, and they can't Erika's anything, and then all of your Pokemon either can attack with T-Burst, or they evolve into one of the Gardevoirs that can attack for just 3 energy. So yeah, that's a really good matchup because I play 4 T-Burst. Of course, the Mirage Step gets 3 Curlias out. The Curlias are your draw engine, the Gardevoir is your draw engine and your attacker. Gardevoir Psychic Embrace accelerates the energy. Screamtail didn't get a lot of use, but arguably in my loss against Lost Zone Sablezard, I think Screamtail could have been able to save me. It was a really weird situation where I had a collapsed stadium something away and hit a lost vacuum to make room for the Screamtail, and I don't believe I was able to do so. I think I would have been able to get the Screamtail, but I didn't draw into the vacuum or something like that, and also wasn't able to play Worker as my supporter for turn to get rid of the collapsed. So the Screamtail, actually, no, I take that back. The Screamtail was really, really good in my matchup round 14 against the Arceus deck, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Manaphy, you need to protect against bench stuff. Radiant Greninja's Draw Engine. Lumineon searches supporters. Jirachi protects you from Lost Mine and Yoga Loop. The supporters were just enough. Worker, Boss, Research, Professor Toro Scenario, I love this card, and 3 Iono. The supporter line just felt absolutely perfect. Stadiums, there were times where I wished that I played a second Collapsed instead of the Lost Vacuum, because collapsing away an EX or Lumineon V or just making room for something's really great, but the Lost Vacuum is also really great for removing things like Roaring Moon's Ancient Booster Capsule and removing Box of Disaster from Mew VMAX. For the Pokemon Search lineup, we've got 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Level Ball, and then instead of 4 Fog Crystal, it's 3 Fog Crystal and a Nest Ball, because Nest Ball can find like Radiant Greninja and Jirachi, which Fog can't, and Level can't find the Radiant Greninja. And then we have 2 rare candies, which, sometimes it comes up, but most of the time they're not too important to the deck. 2 Super Rod, 2 Counter Catcher because you're trying to play from behind, and 1 Pal Pad to get your supporters back. And then 10 basic Psychic Energy and 2 Reversal Energy, so that's all pretty standard. So round 1, I played against Miraidon, Flaffy. It was not the Peony build, it was more so the regular, like, 2-path, 2 beach court kind of build, I believe. Game 1, they did not get turn 1 hands. They actually did not attack at all on their turn 1 going second, I believe, which was like really, really good for me. So I just like set up a couple of Ralts and passed. Turn 2, they knocked out my Ralts with not an Iron Hands, I believe. So it was like a Raikou or a Miraidon. They just didn't have like a fantastic start. So from there, I just went, Mirage Step, set up my board. Then they KO with Iron Hands. I respond with Guardy with Reversal and 5 Psychics, or Reversal and 3 Psychics for Shining Arcana to do 240. They knock that out. I go and knock out the next thing. And I want to say that I also responded here because they went down to 2 prizes, knocking out that first Gardevoir since they already took a prize on a Ralts and a double prize KO with Iron Hands on the Mirage Step. I believe here what I did was kind of like Super Rod back a couple pieces, reestablish a Curlia, and then either Tauros or collapse this Gardevoir EX away, so there's only single prizers on the board. So that like kind of checkmates them. And then in game 2, they prized their only Iron Hands, so they tried to go with a game plan of using their Zapdos, which is a single prizer, as an attacker, which was actually a really great strategy to go for, but just wasn't good enough because without Iron Hands EX, that matchup is extremely favored for Gardevoir. Most matchups you can conceptualize these straightforward matchups like Miraidon, Roaring Moon, Arceus, things that are just like 2 prize beat sticks. Like you're typically just out trading them because your single prize Gardevoir can knock out their double prizers. Round 2 against Golden Go, they did not hit the turn 2 cross switcher canceling cologne, and I feel like if that doesn't happen, you just win, because again, they have these 2 prize attackers like Palkia V-Star. I think they turn 2 attacked Subspace Swell into like my Mirage Step or whatever, and then I just responded with Gardevoir for 310, I think is the math. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for 330. into their Palkia V-Star. Or no, it would be 300 into their Palkia V-Star. So yeah, you just need, yeah, 300. Five Psychics, a Reversal is 8 energy total, so that's 300 Brainwave into the Palkia V-Star. We did go into a game 2, but we didn't finish the game 2. My opponent was like shuffling my deck after every time I shuffled, and it definitely cost them a chance for making that game a tie. Just playing a little too slow, taking too long to shuffle, and things like that. Round 3 was against Lost Zone Gudra. Not really too much to say about this matchup, except they drew very awkward, but it's also a deck that notably does draw very awkward. Lost Vacuum was big for me because they played Box of Disaster. The Gudra does take reduced damage, so it does open up plays like uh, doing like a double counter catcher to remove that reduction effect, or like a boss plus counter catcher. But that play never actually had to come up. I was able to just cleanly knock it out even when it was at 270 with the 80 damage reduction. Thanks to either Zacian V or Shining Arcana Gardevoir being able to knock that out. The Gudra deck, just if something can one shot it, it doesn't like that very much. But also I was able to go with my Cresselia, because Cresselia is really good against Cramorant, and I had Manaphy to protect against their Radiant Greninja, and I had Jirachi to protect against their Sableye, so yeah, just I was really, really prepared for that matchup. Also, the Professor Tauros can help if I like force them. So like something you can do is you can Miracle Force into their Gudra, and then they'll activate their V-Star ability to full heal it and hit your Guardy back, and then you can just go Tauros up your Guardy, send out the next Kirlia, evolve that one, attach Psychic Embrace twice, Miracle Force again, and then they don't have a heal left, and then they're just on the back foot from there. So yeah, Lost Zone Gudra was a 2-0. Then round 4 versus Tyler Matthews. So this was an interesting one. Tyler was actually playing NTV Iron Valley and EX, but he opened Bidoof and chose for me to go first. So my only logical thought was I'm playing against TM Evolution Charizard because they opened Bidoof and they chose to go second. That was my educated guess. So I believe my opening was something like I started Cresselia and like benched Aralts and attached energy, just preparing for my turn 2 Mirage Step as normal. So next turn I retreat, I attach, I Mirage Step, and we're good to go. But I quickly found out that he was playing NTV Iron Valley and EX, and my heart sank. But luckily, they use Squawkabilly, they use Research, they have all this stuff to Magma Base and NTV, and attach. I believe they had a rope earlier in the turn, but they had to get rid of it, or maybe they just never found the rope again. Um, but long story short, they weren't able to get a rope at the right time to bring the Entei up, and already have it powered up for Magma Basin to kill my only Ralts. So my Ralts did survive somehow that turn 1 when I didn't know I was playing against Iron Valiant. And from there, I was able to stabilize with Mirage Step, get my Jirachi into play to protect things from Yoga Loop. And I was able... Oh, I also believe I had a turn where Tauros Scenario healed a damaged Gardevoir, which that's really, really big in this kind of matchup as well. Swinging with a Guardy EX, and then they hit it with Entei, and then you Tauros it, and all that damage is just gone. It's really, really sick. So yeah, I beat Entei v Iron Valiant. My Twitter post has all of the specific, like how many games we played and stuff. I want to say that Game 1 versus Entei v Iron Valiant went like 38 minutes, and then we didn't finish Game 2. Round 5 was against Roaring Moon, and Shining Arcana Guardies just trade so favorably with it. So that was a quick 2-0. I don't believe they were playing the catcher version. They were also not... Yeah, they weren't playing the catchers to my knowledge, and then they also weren't playing... They definitely weren't playing the Water Energy Radiant Greninja. So I was safe from that. I benched Manaphy in Game 1, didn't bench it in Game 2, and was able to take the 2-0 there against Roaring Moon. Round 6, I played against the Peony build of Miraidon EX. And Yeah, they got turn one Iron Hands EX. They were playing two Iron Hands EX. So game one, I never stood a chance, and game two was pretty similar. You know, a lot of peony for double generator, and as long as they hit one energy off of each, they're good to go. Sometimes they hit 2 and 0. Sometimes they hit 1 1. Sometimes they hit 2 and 1. As long as they don't hit 0 0, they're usually fine. So yeah, that I got rocked that round because their Iron Hands EX just ran through everything for two prizes at a time. Next round was against Volcanic. I was gonna say Volcanic Turtle, Vulcan Turtle, TCG. Really cool dude playing Roaring Moon with catchers. Uh, yeah, I did not expect a tie against a Roaring Moon, but we did, and I actually got lucky as heck to get a tie out of this match because I think if a couple of more turns happened, it would have been a loss. Um, he was just able to like catcher up my Raltses. I think at one point he might have catchered like a lone Ralts, so I wasn't able to step. He captured my refinements and knocked those out. Yeah, so in the game that I lost game one, and I think I would have lost game three. I believe I won game two. Game two kind of just went how the matchup is supposed to go for me, and in the other ones, my awkward draws plus Pokemon catchers really influenced things. Round eight, I played against Tina. We only played game one out fully, so I won game one and game two one to time. Did Tina things. You know, my opponent had a really slow start. They didn't play a course until like turn four, so I just took my time, Moonglow reversing their Tinas, setting up damage for later on, and then just swept the board out from there once they started knocking things out. I think they had to go with I definitely did a Tauros play. I think they like roped up my Gardevoir and I Taurosed it and then just went back with Cresselia and they were like, all right, we gotta get this Cresselia out of there, and so they shredded it, and that's when I started taking knockouts. Round nine versus Chi and Pal. When I saw their mulligan hand, I was really upset because I'm not playing Avery and I hate Chi and Pal. It's a very high rolly deck. Luckily, my opponent reported to me that he had really good luck all of day one, and then against me, he drew pass twice. So we take those for the round 9 win to go 7-1-1 into day two. Round one of day two, which is round 10, I played against Lost Zone Giratina, and I had a really awkward start. Um, I believe I either whiffed the Mirage Step turn two and had it like set up manually, or I whiffed like the turn three Moonglow reverse and all of that good stuff. I remember just having a very awkward start, but that typically doesn't matter against Tina. And it wasn't so much the awkwardness of my start that mattered. It was more so the awkwardness of my draws from there on out. I couldn't really get the Moonglow reverses for 100 on their Tinas. I could only spread around for like 60 or 80, so ended up needing to like just knock out a Comfey or knock out a Sableye at some points because the damage I would have been spreading to their Tinas weren't as good as I would like, because you want the 100 on Tina so then you can Miracle Force it. That's like really the goal. My opponent hit some key moments of Roxanne and key moments of Boss, which, you know, without either of those, this matchup definitely would have gone a different way. But yeah, so I lost a like 44-minute game one, and then in game two, I just waited for them to like bench more than two Pokemon and then scooped because that game wasn't ending. So yeah, lost just one loss there, and then time in round 10 against Tina. Round 11 versus Axel Alvarez, DT Mew. Really easy matchup. Just knock out some three prizes and we're done. He played to the best of his ability, you know, psychic leaping, making me go down to an awkward one prize. But as long as you can stabilize your board, you're pretty good there. Round 13, I played against Lost Zone Sablezard. We played more than a 50-minute game one. We went to time in game one, and that's kind of like, you know, he and I think both understood that that's how this would go. We were taking our time, but we weren't slow playing. But we both understood that even if we rushed through game one, we're probably never finishing a game two anyway. So, we were both, thoughtful, but not stalling, which is very important to note. That's kind of the sweet spot that you want to be at in one of these kinds of matchups where it's going to be a lot of spreading damage and maybe collapsing or toroing and setting up future knockouts and um, disrupting and trapping and all those kinds of things. So I prized Jirachi, which was very scary for me because, like I just said, I was pretty certain this would just be a one game match. And I honestly really like one game matches with Gardevoir. Regardless if I win or lose, it feels good. We don't have to rush through 3 games. I've also been playing since back in the day when every round was best of one. So it's something that I'm comfortable with. But I prized Jirachi. So I knew that I was going to need to take a prize card as fast as possible, which with Gardevoir is often turn 3. So on turn 3, I took a prize, and that would, these first couple of prizes would probably depict, do I scoop and try to get a tie in game 2, because I couldn't win this without Jirachi. Um, my first prize card I took was luckily Jirachi. It kept me in the game. Um, the turning point of the game was my opponent was able to, probably 3 turns before the game was over, he was able to counter catcher or boss my Jirachi and knock it out with Cram or Lost Mine. It doesn't really matter what they knock it out with in the active, whichever they have. Um, and I super rotted it. I Ionoed, and I at least had like one refinement and one arcana to use. I wasn't too heavy on support options because my board was at one point I had a Manaphy down because my opponent opened Comfey and Sableye. They went first. And they had like Sableye, Psychic Energy, Comfey, Switch Cart. I think I saw, let's see, I saw like a typical Lost Zone card go to the Lost Zone. Maybe I saw like a Super Rod or a Nest Ball or a VIP Pass. I didn't see anything to tell me what version I was playing against. So for all I knew, I was playing against Tina or Lost Zone Box. I didn't expect Sablezard as that the most likely choice. So I ended up benching Manaphy on my board turn 1, um, because it was already in my hand. So, and I think I had a Iono, so, let's get this Manaphy down now, so I don't get Greninja'd or, need the Manaphy later. So, because of the moral of that is because of the Manaphy on my board, I had limited bench space at points throughout the game because we have Mirage Step, we have Ralts, we have Curlia, we have Manaphy, and then I also had a Lumineon at one point to play the game. I was able to Tauros a Gardevoir EX that was damaged at one point. I was able to collapse the Lumineon at one point. And I believe I was able to send up the Manaphy when they escape roped to just let it get knocked out by Cram, which essentially cleared a bench space for me. But my board was nowhere near ideal for most of the game. And then when I took that prize with Jirachi, I think that might be when they escape roped and I let them knock out the Manaphy, and then I replaced it with Jirachi. Either that or when I Toroed the damaged Gardevoir, I got to put down a Jirachi. So later in the game, they were able to counter catcher or boss the Jirachi KO. I super rod, but off of Iono Refinement Arcana, I did not get I didn't get the Jirachi or a Nest Ball or Level Ball or Ultra Ball for it. So on that next turn, my opponent was able to spread damage with Lost Mine, but to get the Sableye, they did have to play down Artisan and leave it there. So then that next turn, I was able to Artisan for my Jirachi immediately. But unfortunately, that wasn't enough because they ended up winning the game with Technical Machine De-Evolution, devolving an Arcana and a Guardi EX. Leaving me with my hand off of a Roxanne plus the cards I drew was like Ralts, Psychic Energy, I think the second Guardi EX, and like a Lost Vacuum or something. Because I got 2 from Roxanne, I drew for turn, I concealed cards, So maybe it was only 4 cards in my hand, but I had like somewhere between 4 and 6 cards, and they were just like useless. So I had a Cresselia with 3 energy from Lunar Blast because that's what knocked out their last Sableye. Then they Radiant Charizard Dievo to me. And then my only option was just Lunar Blast to Zard. I had 1 prize, they had 1 prize. So I could do 110 to Zard. I can't Moonglow Reverse because they have Jirachi on their bench, and then they just knocked me out with Zard for a game. So we played for like 55 minutes game one. It was an amazing game. Unfortunately, did not end up in my favor. Round 14, I played against Arceus, like Bibarel, Path, Regigigas with a Zacian and Radiant Alakazam. Game one, I had a really bad start, but I was able to bring it back because I was able to counter catcher Iono their Bibarel, and then Scream Tail their Radiant Alakazam on the same turn. And then they Squovited to draw 1, and then Bibarel to draw 4. Did not get the DTE to retreat the Bibarel, so they passed. Then that turn, I knocked out the Bibarel. And then from there, I was in control of the game. Game 2 went as it should, where I just trade favorably with Arcana into the Arceuses. So, yeah, that was a really easy round. Just, trapping the Bibarel, taking advantage of that deck, the high retreat cost, and then knocking out its draw engine. Then round 15, if I win this game, I make it the top 16. I get $2,500, 3 boxes. I knew I would get top 16 because I had really, really good resistance. And it's against Roaring Moon. I go first. My starter is Lumineon. I attach Psychic and pass. Luckily, my opponent started Roaring Moon, played down a Pokestop, discarded 3 non-items, attached to Roaring Moon, and passed. I drew and passed. I actually used the Pokestop, got nothing, except for a Lost Vacuum, with which I Lost Vacuumed away their Pokestop and passed. They drew and they passed. I drew, and I believe I got some sort of supporter. I don't know if it was a worker or I don't think it was a. Oh, I got an Iono actually because I remember my only shot here was to put them back into the game as well as me, and it did. I got multiple Ralts. The following turn, I Mirage stepped. The game all came down to me needing to collapse away my Guard EX, and I drew an insane amount of cards. Drew myself down to a 5-card deck. Toro was prized, and collapsed was the next card on top of my deck. And so I didn't get it. I checked after the round. It was the next card on top of my deck, or after the game I checked. And yeah, Toro was one of my last 2 prizes. Collapsed was right here on top of the deck, and I had a Guard EX here. I knock out, I go down to 2 prizes, and my opponent has bossed the Guard EX for game. The next game was just awful. I started like Jirachi Ralts. It was like Jirachi Ralts. And they were able to rope or gust up my Ralts, knock it out. And the next turn, I had energy on Jirachi, I had energy on Ralts, like this, as so, because I attached turn 1 here. And then I Iono for 6, and my Iono was 6 unplayable cards. It was, I couldn't even get another Ralts. There was no Ultra Ball, no Level Ball, no Mirage Step, no nothing. So I just charged energy. They boss KO my Ralts, and from there I couldn't even get another Ralts down, and I scoop. So unfortunately, I lost that last round, and I got top 64, which really, really sucked. 10-4-1, top 64 out of 2,100 people sounds great, but the prizing you get for it is not great because the difference between that win or loss was $2,500 and a half a case or 18 loose packs. And I got the 18 loose packs. But congrats to Blake who beat me. Really nice dude. Happy to see him get his first top 16. So yeah, Gardevoir EX, I still think it's the best deck in the format. And I'll probably play it again for Knoxville. If you have any further questions, leave it in the comments down below. As always, thanks for watching.